look at this. It's so shiny, new, and fresh. It's so different looking. No, I'm not talking about the Millennium Falcon and the Han Solo film. I'm talking about our new Thursday edition of the Resistance broadcast. My name's John Hoey. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you subscribe to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, or YouTube. It's free to do and keeps you aware of when our episodes come out. We are going to talk about the Falcon in a little bit, as well as the idea of an R-rated Star Wars movie, the future of Star Wars TV shows, and this week in Star Wars Wars, we'll debate musical scores in the galaxy far, far away. But before we get into cadences and fortes, let's say hi to James Bainey, Bill Sheehy, and Patrick Covey. What's up, fellas?
Oh, sorry. Bill's and Pat's funeral hasn't started yet.
Oh.
That's funny. It's an awful lot of talk for a ghost.
Ooh.
Man, let me tell you.
Speaking about funerals, you can bury that entire cast.
What?
Oh, jeez. The audience doesn't even know what we're talking about yet, but we'll get into that in a little while. We do. That was Pat's way of teasing what scores we're going to talk about. But we do have some polls that we need to get into here. And this was based off of our previous Star Wars war. And we asked you, the Star Wars Original Trilogy Special Edition came out in 1997, 20 years after the original's release. And the Phantom Menace will turn 20 next year. So, should they make a prequel special edition? And this was close. But 54% of you said yes, they should make a prequel special edition, beating out 46% of you who said no. So people over the age of 30 voted more than people under the age of 30. That was my guess. What do you guys think about that? It was a close one. I thought it was going to be more yeses than nos, actually. A bigger, wider margin than that. But what was your take?
I was actually commissioner last week, so I never really gave an honest opinion of what I think they should do. And I do have to say that I am leaning toward they should do the prequel special editions. The only thing that's weird about it is I'm just a little bit afraid that will erase the old prequels. And so I think if they're going to do it, it would be great to keep the originals and still allow you to see the new special editions, if that makes sense.
Well, if you have your DVDs, you can still always go back to the old ones, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think this is representative of kind of where people are, or the community as a whole, as who likes the prequels and who doesn't. I think that a majority do like them, but there is a pretty vocal, not minority, but yeah, they are in the minority, I guess, a vocal kind of half that don't want the prequels to ever exist. So I think that poll is representative of that, and that's exactly what I was expecting.
I honestly wasn't very surprised because this was pretty close to a 50-50 split here in terms of the numbers. You got half the community saying, yeah, they do want the special editions, and then you got this other half saying no. So as you're seeing, there's another example of the polarity we're seeing in the fan community right now.
Yeah, I mean, it was close. We're going to send this to Lucasfilm so that they can see that 54% of the people out there, because this was a scientific poll, 54% of the people out there will buy this product. Yeah.
Bigly scientific.
All right, now our best comment went to Gerard'Chewie'Deane at Gerard'Chewie'Deane97. And he said, special editions as in adding in the deleted scenes such as Mon Mothma and Bail in Episode 3, Jocasta talking about Dooku in Episode 2, along with some of the CGI being updated, then yeah, I'm for that. So that was a very specific special edition that Gerard would like. So if they do all of those things, Gerard will buy their special edition. But thank you, Gerard. You did get the most likes. You had the most popular comment, so we appreciate that. And every time we do polls, leave a comment because you may be on the next show. Now, without further ado, it is time to find out if the Force is with us. So I giveth to Bill Sheehy to take us into that segment.
It is my favorite part of the week. Ladies and gentlemen, as the late, great Samuel L. Jackson said, take a seat. Our first story today is about the most consequential show on YouTube, the Star Wars show. And they showed off a 360-degree view of the Millennium Falcon and gave us a close look at the different look of the most famous ship in the galaxy. So, guys, we've all watched the video. We've seen what the Falcon looks like. The Falcon looks very, very different. She's clean. She's sleek. She's different. Is the Force with you on this new look, John?
No. That is one thing I will be a grumpy old purist about. I like my Falcon how it was. So seeing it sleek and with new Fast and Furious body kits really doesn't do it for me. But I understand why. There's probably some story element to it, and I'll accept that and appreciate that. I just don't personally like seeing the old gal all sleek and neat and clean and stuff like that. I like her with her curves and character. So I'm going to say no, the Force is not with me, although I will respect and appreciate and understand why they did it, I'm sure.
Patrick Covey, is the Force with you on the new look of the Millennium Falcon, or old look?
Yeah, the Force is actually with me on this. Even though it's a little bit different than what everybody is used to, I feel like this is going to be something different and fresh, and it's going to give us a different perspective into the Falcon of the past, something we've never experienced before. I don't want them to dive in too much into the history because we basically know what this ship is so iconic and about, so maybe explain a little bit about why it's so new and different, but don't throw a textbook in our face and tell us to read it and have it studied by the end of the week. So yeah, Force is with me.
James Baney, is the Force with you?
I'm with Pat on this one, and the answer is world building. You can't continue to build worlds in your universe if you keep going back to the same ones. So my thing is that we're going to get the same Han. It's the same Han, but he's different. We're getting the same Falcon, but it's different. I think that if you keep showing us the same old dirty Falcon, nothing changes, that it is familiar, but it could eventually get stale, and this is the same thing, just a fresher version of it. I'm excited to see a clean Falcon, a younger, more vibrant, Lando-owned Falcon. Force is with me.
And I'm going to mirror most of the thoughts of James and Patrick here, because the Force is definitely with me on this. I really kind of love this.
Can we have a change the Star Wars war this week?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Bill.
It's all good. The Force is with me because I love the new sleek design. They're giving us something different, but it's also very, very familiar because it's the most famous ship in the galaxy. So the Force is with me on this. On to the next story. So guys, grab your hearing aids and your prune juice, because we're going to the AARP award show, which Star Wars The Last Jedi won Best Movie for Grown-Ups. I don't know what that means, but this has got people talking about the possibility of Star Wars making an R-rated standalone film. So, Patrick, is the Force with you on Star Wars making an R-rated standalone film?
I'm sorry, the Force is not with me on this. I see no need for this to happen. It's great for superhero films and stuff in that genre because you can take those risks. You can get a little bit dirtier and more bloody and forceful. No pun intended. But but I feel like if you're going to do something like that, that should be more reserved to maybe the comics or in text format or a little bit of descriptiveness in the maybe books moving forward, something like that. If you want to go a little bit more into detail in the books, I might like something more like that, but keep it out of the visual stuff in the movies. It's just going to keep people from being able to enjoy Star Wars. Star Wars has always been family oriented, and I think if they want to make big buku bucks, they should keep it that way.
John Hoey, is the Force with you on a Star Wars R-rated standalone film?
No, it's not Star Wars' lane. When they made the transition to PG-13, starting with Revenge of the Sith, I got it. It seemed necessary in order to tell certain stories like Anakin turning into a burnt potato. But it's supposed to be for kids. Adults watch it. But if they do an R-rated movie, and all these movies, although they're going to be in different places of the galaxy, are still supposed to be under this one umbrella, then you cut that off because then you have your kid and you're watching all these other movies, but you're like, oh, that one over there? Yeah, you can't watch that one, even though it's under this umbrella of this saga or this franchise. And that kind of rubs me the wrong way. So for that, one, the Force is not with me. And two, I don't think it's ever going to happen anyway. But it was interesting that people pitched it.
James Baney, are you sold on a Star Wars R-rated standalone film? Is the Force with you on this?
The Force is with me, actually, and the answer is world building. Because if you keep going back to the same world over and over again, you can't ever grow. I think that right now, for a long while, for the next 10 years maybe, we are definitely going to continue to see PG-13 Star Wars movies, and I think that's important. But if they continue to be successful and they continue to make enough money that they deem it possible to make 2 movies a year or 3 movies a year, and they go down that line, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing something where they specify, hey, this is where it needs to go. And in order to tell this story, and in order to do a Logan, which I actually don't really like that movie, but I know most people do, in order to do that, we had to take X-Men to an R-rated situation. That's just the story that we needed to tell to make what people who like the X-Men movies consider to be one of the best X-Men movies. So I think that it could theoretically be possible down the line. I still think it's kind of weird, and I don't think we're going to get it for a long time, but hey, why not?
Gotcha. And James, once again, I'm going to go with you because the Force is with me on this, and with the caveat that you have to do it right. You can't just make an R-rated Star Wars film just to make an R-rated film. Like you guys were talking about, like James and Patrick were talking about a little bit, if you keep making the same thing over and over, people are going to get tired of it. When all the talk of superhero movies getting old and stale, we got a Deadpool, completely changed everything. We got a Logan, completely changed everything. I'm not saying that you make every single Star Wars movie an R-rated film, but if you can do maybe a bounty hunter film or a true gruesome underworld film that's R-rated and does it right, I think that's great, and I don't have any problem with that at all. So the Force is with me on that. On to the next one. So, the guy who loves drinking his apple juice, Bob Iger, revealed that there are multiple Star Wars shows in development for Disney's Netflix competitor streaming service. He said there's not just one, but a few Star Wars series in development for the small screen. James, Disney is making a Netflix competitor, and they're going to be putting Star Wars shows on it behind a paywall. Will you be buying their streaming service? Is the Force with you behind this paywall?
The Force is with me. World build. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
No, I actually do. I do think that I just started a family, and our family loves Disney. I just don't see any way around us wanting to get into the streaming service because I think it's going to be more than just Star Wars, and I think it's going to be a lot of things that a lot of families are going to want to have because it's all oriented to Disney. The big bonus for me is that there's going to be these huge Star Wars stories, and I'm really excited to where they're going to go. And I was jokingly kind of say world building, but heck yeah, world building. You know what I mean? Like I have a feeling that these shows are going to be family friendly, but they can't be too kiddie, you know what I mean? They can't make the Disney streaming service like just G-rated and PG things because they're going to put Star Wars on there, so at least has to be PG-13. Is this maybe the way that they're capable of going dark enough where they don't actually have to label it R? You know what I mean? But they could put it on there and they could say, hey, everybody from the smallest person in your family or the youngest to the oldest person in your family has a reason to get the Disney streaming service, from Mickey cartoons to quote unquote R-rated Star Wars stuff. You know what I mean? That's it's a big sale, but I think no matter what it ends up being, even if it's something as simple as Rebels, I'm going to be buying a streaming service.
Patrick, will you be buying this new Disney streaming service, and is the Force with you on it?
Oh, heck yeah, I'm going to be buying into the subscription service. And the number one reason is, I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but when Bob Iger was pitching this, he said, I want to do something like Netflix, but I want it to be like half the cost of Netflix, because that's been a big reason people have been actually cutting the cord with Netflix here lately, is that the price keeps going up. So Disney might actually make huge leaps and bounds just in price range alone. And then, of course, you're going to have Star Wars and all these other properties like James was saying. And think about it this way. Rebels is still not on Netflix or any other streaming service outside of what Disney's already running for their streaming app. This might be another way for Rebels to spread a little bit further and for other Star Wars properties down the line, which I consider to be very convenient because it'll all be in one place. I wouldn't be shocked if they put even all the feature-length saga films and spin-offs on there at one point or another. That might be also good to help save money. All you have to do is just pay the subscription fee. You don't have to necessarily have the Blu-ray or DVD. It's all there digitally there for you.
Gotcha. And John Hoey, Are you going to be buying the streaming service, and is the Force with you on the service in general?
Yes and yes. The Force is with me. It opens up so many doors for great programming. If I need to pay 4 cups of coffee a month for that, I will. I have no problem with it and look forward to the outlet and the content, especially if, as Pat was saying, if they put the saga films and stuff on there. I mean, I own them all, but just for the sake of boom, 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 you just like immediately put them on, watch it on my phone, watch it anywhere. I do want to make a motion that next week we put $1 in the jar every time someone says world building. I want to put that motion forward. I know Bob Iger said half the cost, but we all know that's going to be at first, and eventually they're going to
eventually
a little bit. And I believe he did say, I don't want to burst your bubble or throw you under the bus here, James, but I think today Bob Iger said there's going to be no R-rated content on the streaming.
Okay, all right, well.
So I mean, and again, that's something maybe they'll change down the road. But as of now, he went out to make a point to say that. So, but yeah, I mean, long story short, the Force is with me. I love this idea, especially like James is saying, like, you know, families and everything. You get all the other Disney stuff too. Like, we're all focused on Star Wars, but you get all this other cool stuff. Heck yeah! So the Force is with me. I love it. Thank you, Bob.
What I actually really want to know is the Clone Wars going to move over from Netflix over to the streaming service? Because that's still like gray area. We haven't heard anything on that as well.
I'm sure they will. They'll put all their stuff on their own streaming service.
Absolutely. I'm going to agree with you guys. The Force is with me on this, and I am definitely going to be getting this as soon as it comes out. You had me at Star Wars. It doesn't matter if it's new content or old content, which I think once that it'll launch with this new Star Wars show, which if that alone will make it successful in the first couple of months. But Disney has an amazing catalog already, so the Force is with me just because it has that huge library and it has Star Wars on it, so it just seems like a no-brainer to me. Guys, that's all I've got. And just so you guys know, I am fully aware that Samuel L. Jackson is alive. It started off as a joke, and now I can't not say it anymore. So that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for listening. John, back to you.
It is time.
I say we fight.
It is time for Star Wars Wars. This week, we are going to have it out for music composition. What is the lifeblood of Star Wars? It is the music. Who has been always known for making that music? John Williams, who just recently turned 86 years old, as we told you in our episode on Monday. Now, in the spirit of that, we are going to have a debate. I'm going to moderate it, and we have 2 sides here. I'll let them say who's on what side. But right now, it's looking like we're going to say which score, when you really break it down and look at it, is better. The Last Jedi by John Williams or Rogue One by Michael Giacchino and that other guy who started it. So I'll let everyone do their opening statement. I'll try to moderate this thing to keep it civil, and we'll start with opening statements. So take it away, fellas.
Well, I'm going to say right away that I'm going to be defending in this case because I think I'm fighting the losing battle, if you will, against most people. That Rogue One is actually a better soundtrack because simply, straight and forward, it's original. That's going to be my argument.
And I'm going to be on the side of The Last Jedi, not only because it's made by the maestro who takes us to every single adventure in the Star Wars universe, but he's done some pretty epic things in this score that will go down in the history of Star Wars.
And I am also going to be on John Williams' team because there is not a better maestro or film composer, period, than John Williams. And The Last Jedi is an absolute triumph.
Okay, so not only is James probably not starting off with the fans and our listeners in his favor, but he's got 2-on-1 here. Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let James start it off with his arguments, and then you guys can kind of have at it. And if you get out of line, I'm going to crack it, okay? So, James, fire it off, buddy.
I definitely understand that this is a Star Wars war and that you're always able to fight in guerrilla tactics, but I am going to say I challenge you right now to go this whole thing without just plainly leaving everything on the fact that it's John Williams and he's good. put everything on this score itself, and don't just say, "Come on, guys, it's John Williams." Let's see if we can kick it off with that. Here's the thing, though, is that, like I said, Rogue One is better because it's original. All the stuff that came in The Force Awakens, let's put it this way. I think that The Force Awakens as a soundtrack is probably actually better than Rogue One. But that's because all of the songs that came out of The Force Awakens felt fresh and new and original. We got Rey's theme. We got Kylo Ren's theme. We got Jedi Footsteps. We got everybody's favorite song out of that album, The March of the Resistance. Come on, guys. So, I think that overall, when you look at The Last Jedi's score, it actually is kind of a similar or a repeat of that score. All you're really getting is the greatest hits. Now, the other thing too is that you are incorporating The Force Awakens with it as well, but there is so much of the same music in The Last Jedi. You hear the Force theme over and over and over again, and that's my biggest thing. Like, it honestly feels like when I'm listening to it that I could be listening to the London Philharmonic present me with a Star Wars medley. It's a great song that transitions to another really familiar song, which transitions to another really familiar song, but it doesn't present its own
So, James, you're saying
thing.
that John Williams, just for The Last Jedi, and we know you're not disparaging him in any way, is Bruce Springsteen playing a concert at age 60 of his greatest hits kind of thing, right?
Yeah, so to speak. I think that he still has the creativity to transition from song to song with something maybe that's kind of interesting and keeps it kind of relevant. But at the end of the day, you don't walk out of that concert going like, man, all of that new material, it was just so fresh. And I'm going to remember that concert over the same concert that he played last year, which was all the same songs with different transitions. You know what I mean? Those two concerts don't separate themselves.
I got to say, that's a good point. What do you guys have on that?
Please, talk about Giacchino first. We didn't hear anything about him.
Are you serious?
I'm gonna set it up as you know, that's why I think that The Last Jedi is not able to hold its own. We'll talk about Giacchino and the Rogue One score here in a minute. I just want to hear what you guys got to say about that.
I think you guys need to defend that claim first before you start.
Here we go. Let me say this. Yes, Giacchino made an original score. It's just not that interesting. What are some standout songs from Rogue One? I can name one. Hope. That's it. The final song of that movie. It's great. But in that, it also incorporates parts. It's just the Imperial March slowed down. So there's your whole originality thing. He takes parts of that song he uses from John Williams. Second, The Last Jedi itself has, yes, it does have influences from other ones. And like you said, the Force theme is throughout. But what I love about John Williams, the way he incorporates into it, there are hints of the Force theme. You get the da 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 da. You get that first.
Absolutely not, man. I'm gonna go back real quick.
Let me finish.
Let me finish this point.
You get hints of the Force theme where you do get that first part where it's da 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 da, but you don't get the final ba da 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 da, like the final part, until Luke is looking at the twin suns on Octo. He's been building up the entire time for this big moment. Yes, there are hints, and yes, he uses it a lot, and I fully accept that. But that emotional moment when Luke is looking out into the sun and you finally hear the song itself finishing is a powerful moment, and there's nothing like that in Rogue One at all. There is no huge powerful moment that you feel the music swelling and you feel everything, and that's what a good soundtrack should do, and Rogue One just doesn't do that.
Bill, before you guys get back into this here, your whole summary there was about the Force theme, and that was kind of what James was saying about how it was the old greatest hits. So I kind of want to pull Pat in here. Pat, what was new in The Last Jedi that stood out to you? I guess let's even the field here a little bit.
The biggest huge thing that I took away from The Last Jedi score more than anything, and I think we can all agree about this, the song The Spark. did something to all of us as fans. I can't think of another single song in the John Williams library in Star Wars where a piece has built from such a soft volume slowly and slowly and slowly.
He is the spark. The spark is becoming a fire.
That was
when
great.
Luke walks out onto those plains of Octo, I felt like I was in awe of Luke Skywalker on a level I've never felt before. That
completely
is art
new
at
and
work.
original.
That is art at work.
On Crate, you mean, not Octo. You mean Crate.
Crate.
Yes.
Damn it.
You were so so absorbed in the music that you forgot what planet it was on.
The plains
All right,
of
well,
water.
I'm going to go back to him saying that Hope isn't original because it's just a slowed down version of the Imperial theme. But which do you think is more original, playing the Imperial theme again or playing a slowed down version to a point which becomes a completely different song, to a point which people don't even recognize it as the original song?
Just because they don't recognize it doesn't mean it's still the same song. I mean, it's not the same song.
That's creatively creating a remix and recreating the music to create something new that is a new song. And the other thing is you were saying is that the Last Jedi score doesn't end in the Force theme. It only ends in the last one. I think that's just complete infactual information.
Really?
Like, that's not true. All throughout The Last Jedi, you do hear that second cadence, which ends it out. And if you want to talk about
it again.
The use of
Dude,
just
I've
a
seen it
taste
10
of it,
times. Don't tell me I'm wrong.
just if you want to get a taste of the music, you have to then admire how well the Rogue One soundtrack just gave you a little bit of taste all across the board with all those different songs, with just using it enough to make you be like, oh, that's Star Wars, but it's different and it's refreshing and it's kind of like a remix. Lastly, you guys are talking about the spark as if it's the big creative original song in The Last Jedi score, and I'm going to actually play a little clip of it here for you guys really quick. So this is probably the only aspect of The Last Jedi score that I really consider original. Now, there is the Rose theme, and there's also Spark. I'm going to go back to that Rose theme real quick. I'm going to play this one more time. And I understand that most people, or not most people, some people might go, yeah, I recognize that right away and I noticed it throughout the movie. But I would say that most people didn't even get that out of the movie. Mm-hmm. They didn't connect with that. Whereas like a lot of the big soundtracks did have, you know, Yoda's theme and stuff like that. And they were able to kind of connect with those things. But Rose's was probably one of the pieces that original, but it didn't really stand out. And that what I played in the whole soundtrack, it's that same melody over and over and over again. They just stick it in whenever she's doing something. And that isn't really that great. It's just a little bit of a taste. The thing about the Spark that I'm going to throw out there too is that I think this is the one that you guys are semi-right on. This is an original song in the movie, but here's the thing. It starts with 1 minute of original music that leads up to the Force theme, the full Force theme in the middle of it. Then from there, it moves into Leia's theme. And from Leia's theme, it moves into Han and Leia. And then from there, it finishes with 1 minute and 30 seconds of original music, which when I say original, it's very reminiscent of the trailer. And to be honest with you, because that it ends that way, and also here's another thing too, it builds up and builds up and builds up and builds up and doesn't resolve. It closes before it actually goes anywhere melodically, and all that tension is great and it's good, but it doesn't actually lead anywhere. And that's why I'm saying I don't even think that your other song, which I know you guys are going to throw this at me too, Peace and Purpose, is so great. It does the same similar thing. It goes from the Force theme to Kylo's theme. Like, it doesn't actually have any original music in it. It's just a small little compilation song.
I think the point you're making that it's more original. Yes, absolutely. Completely understand that. Too bad it's not the Star Wars war isn't about what's the more original music. It's what's the best. And while, like I've said before, it's original, it's not very interesting at all. And I'll contend that while yes, it does use aspects of other movies very, very effectively, it still has, it's still its own thing. It's not the greatest hits like you're saying. For example, we're talking about at the beginning, where you're moving down on the ship, and you have the drums, and you have the horns, and you have all that coming in. But then once it builds to where Poe's coming in, and then when Poe finally hits his jets, and he's messing around with, after he's been messing around with Hux, and you get the little bit of the Falcon theme until it goes into the new stuff. So while yes, it does
the new stuff. Sing me that song. Sing it to me.
I bless the rains down in Africa.
Yeah, you can't. It doesn't stick with you. You're saying John Williams is the greatest of all time, and he created this thing that we're forever going to be singing these songs, and every time these songs come up, we're going to be like taken back immediately to that point where Poe hits his jets, and then he does the little bit of the Falcon thing, but then it turns into this original music that... I bless the rains down and I can't sing it to you because it's not memorable. It's just
James,
not
okay,
as...
what is one memorable song from Rogue One then? Besides Hope.
Oh.
Besides Hope.
Okay. Besides Hope. Here's the thing, is that Rogue One is full of all these songs that will take you back to those distinct moments that happen in the movie. Here's one that I got for you. Your Father Would Be Proud.
Don't remember that.
Or even the Wabani camp, you know what I mean? The
how does that go? Can you tell me how that goes?
The Wabani Imperial Labor Camp. Yeah, the Wabani Imperial Labor Camp.
How does it go? That memorable Wabani labor camp.
What I find interesting here is that it seems...
All right.
It seems like, James, it seems like these guys are trying to say that The Last Jedi was great by John Williams melding new familiar themes that he introduced in the first chapter of the trilogy with some different overtones and undertones. So they're saying it's a great score, not necessarily because he introduced new themes, but because he took the new themes he created for the characters we met in the last film, and now he's trying to stretch it out a bit. That seems like what they're trying to hammer home. Am I right, fellas?
Yeah, and I'm moderating now, and you can go ahead and take over, John.
No.
All right, James, back to you. I'll let you have the counter argument there.
No.
Well, here's the thing, is like, okay, I am throwing a couple different songs in there, and the thing is I actually tried to power pack my point with a couple, and as I was listening to the soundtrack and I was picking out specific songs, it did move into the Wabani song, and it just moved to the next track. And I was like, yes, I love this. And I knew exactly where it took place in the movie, but you're right, it isn't exactly memorable. I do want to play it really quick just so you guys can hear it. Just so you can hear it.
Oh, I do like that. Every time I hear that in Rogue One, I do like that a lot.
So you got that, and you also have, just in general, the main theme of the movie.
I made this text an iMovie.
Yeah, see, actually, I don't like the main theme from Rogue One, so that actually, I don't think that's a strength for Rogue One's score. Pat, you have to just start firing off. We're not taking turns here.
Now, I will say in defense of James that section of the Wobani piece, the reason we remember that section more than the rest of the piece is because in that section we remember seeing Ring of Catherine for the first time, and that was something we have never seen in Star Wars before. Like 2 asteroids with like almost like a little city trading port in between. That was like mind-blowing to see that. So I think that's why that segment's more memorable, not because of the music, but because of how it's tied to the visuals. Well,
and I understand, and I mean that's kind of my point too, is that I'm saying that when you hear those songs, you're reminded of Rogue One. You're reminded of things that are encapsulated in this movie. They didn't play the Force theme there, or they didn't play like Leia's theme there. I know that doesn't make sense, but I'm saying like a classic old song that you can draw from other memories.
Yeah.
You are pulling from something, and then when we hear it again and we hear it in different parts of the movie, we're able to be like, oh yes, I remember this from earlier in the story, and it kind of pulls everything together. One other last one too is the like new kind of Imperial march that plays right before we see Tarkin. And the reason I want to throw that one out there is because it is distinct in its own mind, and when you hear that song, you're taken back to those moments, and you're taken back to Rogue One. You're not taken to any other place in the Star Wars universe, but at the same time, there is that last little lick at the end, the bum, 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 which is what you hear before you visit the Death Star conference room in A New Hope. They take these tight little elements of things that you are familiar with, but they add them in a very good way, not just simply playing those songs outright to be like, hey, remember this?
James.
So you're saying that Michael Giacchino is seamlessly blending hints from the old John Williams soundtrack and putting it into Rogue One. Is that what you're saying?
100%. That is what I'm saying. You're using that as an argument to be like, well, that's not a good thing.
That's the exact same argument.
What
That's
I'm
the
saying
exact same
is
argument you've used against me. That's the exact same
I'm
argument.
saying that John Williams in this case is using the exact same song. He's taking a song that he already had and he's just inserting it and then playing them back to back to back. Whereas this is taking elements of those notes and those melodies and recreating them to give you something new but still familiar.
We are approaching our time limit here, but I have to say right now, so James, you're presenting Rogue One. You're the underdog out of the gate. Now, Bill and Pat, Giacchino took over this thing. He put this thing together in 2 or 3 months. Tell me why the greatest composer of all time did a better score than Rogue One. Let's close this thing out. You have the all-star here. You have the all-star team against a minor leaguer. This guy came in for a couple months and put a score together. Why is John Williams' score better?
Ultimately, it's because John Williams just had more time to get this thing done. Giacchino was under a very tight time constraint to make this happen, and I will give Giacchino huge props to be able to pull off a score even close to that in that short amount of time. So I will give James some props there on defending that even as short amount of time as they had to push this thing out. And I feel like John Williams has just taken something with The Last Jedi. It's very old and reminiscent of things in our past, but it's starting to become a transitional piece, whereas, yeah, it might be the greatest hits of Star Wars, but now it's starting to transition into this new stage of Star Wars, like Episode 9, maybe the Rian Johnson trilogy and stuff down the line. They're willing to take that risk and start to intro some of these new ideas in there.
Okay, Bill, do you have closing arguments on this? Sell the people.
A couple final thoughts. John Williams absolutely took his time. He is a complete and total maestro. He knows exactly what he's doing. Michael Giacchino had 6 weeks to come up with a score, and it's absolutely commendable. But it is nowhere near the maestro himself, John Williams. There is one standout song in Rogue One. There are several in The Last Jedi. The Spark, Peace and Purpose, A New Alliance, Canto Bight, Battle of Crate. All of these effortlessly blend themes from the original trilogy, The Force Awakens. But at the end of the day, it's its own thing. And it integrates into the story perfectly. And I feel like it's just an overall way more emotional score than anything Rogue One ever did. Okay,
James, what is your closing argument about this? Why is Rogue One better than The Last Jedi score?
Well, I definitely think it's the Last Jedi score isn't full of original music, and I know that's counter to what you're saying, but you're naming Peace and Purpose, and we've covered how that wasn't really original music. You're talking about The Spark, and we've covered how that really wasn't original music. There's just like a little bit of it in there, but that music doesn't encapsulate The Last Jedi as a film. And you also mentioned, too, the Canto Bight stuff, which is true. That's original music. But go back and listen to it, man. It's very Cantina Band. It's kind of similar to that. Now, that's fair, though, if you want to say that that's another original song. But I would say that overall, the Rogue One score, and this is actually kind of where I think it's similar to The Force Awakens, it actually takes me through the movie. When I start it, I can picture every scene all the way through it, and it takes me all the way through, whereas The Last Jedi loses me in a series of songs that when I hear them, I can't connect to individual events in that particular film. I connect to all of the things that happened in all of Star Wars movies previously. So The Last Jedi is great, but it's flawed for that reason. Star Wars as a whole doesn't really have, it doesn't provide individual themes for each one of its movies, and I think that's why Rogue One excels. It's free from that disassociation, allowing it to have its own voice, and you can actually go back to Rogue One again and again just by listening to the music and relive the whole movie, whereas, again, like I said, the Last Jedi is just another collaboration of all the songs we've heard over and over again. This actually sets me up, I want to throw this out there too, Solo, I think, will be better than Episode 9 as well, because I don't think Episode 9 is going to create an all-new sound. They're going to revisit Rey's score, they're going to revisit Kylo's score, they're going to revisit Jedi Footsteps, all the stuff. The Force theme is going to be all throughout it, but Solo is going to have a new original sound with a new original composer. And if you want to say that maybe it needs that extra little pep, John Williams is going to come in there and give it that extra little thing, but I don't think it's going to be similar. I don't think it's going to be a song we've heard before. It's going to be a new John Williams song, and then every time we hear that new song by one of the world's greatest composers, we're going to go back to Solo. We're not going to go back to maybe Empire, maybe Return of the Jedi, maybe stuff from the prequels, maybe all the 3 last movies that we got in the sequel trilogy. I just think overall it's that Rogue One has its own voice and you can always go back to it, and Last Jedi is just an amalgamation of all the songs that we've had in the past.
All right, that pretty much wraps it up. Pat, you have one quick thing you need to throw in there?
I do, and that is, as of today, Thursday, February 15th, Last Jedi has only been out for 2 months. We still don't have a home version of the film yet. Sure, the score's out, but the general audience still hasn't had like a full chance to process the entire score and see this movie 50 billion times. So
you're saying it needs more time to breathe?
We need a little more time to breathe and to process this. Maybe we'll see some things that are better than we thought. Maybe there's some things that were back in there that maybe we go, maybe we were defending it.
And that's a fair point. And now, what do you all think out there? I mean, obviously, I have a feeling that going into this thing, you're like, what? You're going to debate Rogue One versus The Last Jedi? But I mean, James brought some audio examples, and he brought a sizable argument as to why it should at least be discussed.
But what do you brought it?
But what do you guys think? I mean, now we know what we need to do when it comes to Star Wars wars. We need to bring evidence and audio examples.
That's a new precedent.
Comment under the episode, tweet at us, let us know what you think. Did you get swayed a little bit? Are you going to download the Rogue One soundtrack? I mean, let us know what you think. Who won this one? And we hope you enjoyed it. And that's it for this week in Star Wars Wars. Now, we're going to get into our new segment, which we've just started getting into recently, called Resistance Expanded Universe. Pat, can you give us a little rundown on what we discovered this week?
So last week, we actually stumbled upon a really cool concept that we didn't think anything would come out of this. It was actually from The Art of The Force Awakens, and animator Tim Gray took this piece of concept art and brought it to the YouTube silver screen, and it was very strange. It was almost so weird and surreal to see like these pieces of concept art suddenly just come to life, and it's not from Lucasfilm. That was just mind-blowing. And basically what it portrayed were 2 of these ships. It was very reminiscent to A New Hope. It looked like they're being chased by that Star Destroyer, just like straight out of A New Hope, until it shows a top-down view, and we realize, no, the 2 smaller ships have like tractor beams, and there's like a giant hole in the Star Destroyer, and that thing's toast.
Yeah.
And this whole sequence showed it going down and basically getting smashed into Jakku, and that basically explains like what happened on Jakku. Why are all these ships there? So first of all, let's kick this off. James, what was your take, and how did you feel after seeing this?
Well, actually, I loved that it happened, and I loved that the whole thing was created in the first place. But I will say, I'm really glad that they didn't go with that, because it just was too much A New Hope. And also, I liked the explanation of the Star Destroyer and why it was there in the first place. Way better through the Lost Stars storyline. But one thing too is that this kind of threw me for a loop. I was like, okay, so I get this, what I'm going to see. They're animating the opening sequence. I expected to see the severed hand thing, which we heard about. Yeah, so I'm gonna
Absolutely.
I'm gonna throw to one of you guys too, because then you can further into that story. But yeah, that's what I got.
I mean, I'm just glad they didn't add it, because like Pat was saying, they even did the flute thing that Bill pointed out that Rian Johnson brought back for The Last Jedi, and people were calling The Force Awakens a rehash as it was. Imagine you saw that.
This would have been that is a
man.
rehash of A New Hope. And
man.
I don't like the fact that like it would immediately jump 30 years. Like that that confused me right off the bat. But then like I was like, "Oh, okay, that's cool."
J.J. Abrams is just throwing C-3PO in there. Did you hear that?
Yeah,
they shut down the main reactor again.
And while that's a great shot of Rey, I mean, it wouldn't work for me as much as the opening that we finally got.
This was cool though. I mean, he did a good job.
He did in me criticizing that is not criticizing the concept artist who did it. Tim did an amazing job.
It says he's at I think it's Twitter and Instagram, which I'm still not sure what Instagram is. But that's
it's like Facebook, but just with pictures. That's for the older folks.
Oh, it's at I am Tim Gray, so you could find him on Twitter and Instagram, and obviously YouTube now. And give him a shout, check him out. So we're gonna tag Tim in this just because he deserves it. But the thing already got like 200,000 views. But it's really cool, and it you know, James, this segment was your idea. Is this kind of like what you had in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I want him to know that you know, it's reaching other people, and that you know, one of the best things you can do on Twitter is if you see something you like, to retweet it and share it with all your fans. It gets you pumped up about like the things you're saying online, and the things that you're doing online are important to other people. And so I think that it's important that the Resistance does what they can to support other Resistance members by saying, hey, we see it. We see what you did, and we celebrate.
Now, John, how did you feel about this segment?
I enjoyed it. I think, like you were saying, I was like, is this just a New Hope animation or something? And then you see like the Swiss cheese Star Destroyer all of a sudden take a hard dying left and starts getting burnt up in the atmosphere. And it's like, oh, okay, that thing's going to crash into the sand, and that's going to be the one that Rey drives by. I thought it was really well done. Like I said, I can barely do Microsoft Paint. So anytime I see somebody, even James, when he designs our t-shirts and all that stuff, I'm like, here's a stick figure. Can you make, check that out. But so I thought it was just utterly brilliant. So good job, man.
Personally, I really like what Tim did here, because it started to further the ideas of maybe like, what could have happened and how this all took place. But with the current canon, as we now know, this couldn't work because of the Battle of Jakku and what happened on that planet. And that can be seen in Lost Stars, the final Aftermath book, Empire's End, and now finally Battlefront 2. So, I mean, there's all these canon elements all come into one place, so it's like we look at it as like, that could have happened, but Battle of Jakku is pretty damn cool too. So if you guys have something you want us to maybe discuss here on Resistance Expanded Universe, send it to us on Twitter or at our email, and we will definitely consider talking about it in the coming weeks. Back to you, John.
Yeah, that's what that segment's all about, just bringing attention to the Star Wars fandom and your creativity, talents, events, charities, really whatever. I mean, we all here think the Star Wars fandom is above and beyond better than anybody else's just because it's community. And contrary to what you may have heard, there is more positivity than anything, and we love promoting that in terms of what the fans can create and get involved in. So thank you for that, and keep, like Pat said, keep those coming because we love getting to that every week. Now, be sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Leave us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, and please like our episodes on SoundCloud and YouTube. That helps a lot. Head over to our store, tpublic.com/user/Resistance Broadcast, and pick up some Resistance Broadcast apparel from t-shirts, coffee mugs, stickers, posters. There's someone just bought a pillow, one of our Kylo design pillows.
I sleep with them.
Yeah.
It's really the best way
You can
to support
sleep
the
with
show.
Adam Driver, and I mean that in the nicest way possible.
That's how I meant it.
With a pillow, and I think someone just bought a notebook. So someone bought our Kylo design on a notebook that says, "I know what I have to do," and that's right in this notebook.
I like
That's
to
pretty
write,
cool.
John.
Yeah, they're gonna write a journal in there. "I know what I have to do" notebook, which is beautiful. So thank you, whoever purchased that notebook. Very cool. For all of your latest Star Wars news, reviews, editorials, and information, go to our website, StarWarsNewsNet.com. Hey James, where can people find you on the internet?
Well, you can find me on Twitter, the thing that John doesn't know what it is, Instagram, at MyerTrunks, MyRAHTRUNKS. But you can actually find me on our YouTube channel as well. I'm generally the guy that's going to be answering your questions, so I don't necessarily sign everything. But I love to engage the questions that are on there and maybe bounce back and say, well, what do you think about this or whatever? So if you want a little bit of community and you're not even on Twitter, you're not on Instagram, you're not on anything that we ever support, we are on YouTube. And you don't really need a whole lot to get on YouTube and pop in there and just say something maybe as a guest. So come and talk to us on the YouTube channel.
And like our episodes and subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe, baby.
The ultimate staple for all podcasts.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe. Pat, where can people hit you up?
Well, since the dollar's going to the word world building next week, I'm going to go ahead and finally say I will be world building by reading more canon knowledge in this next week. That's my freebie. And of course, you guys can find me on Twitter at Gana136 and under the same name on the Cantina forums. If you guys have not joined the Cantina forums, we highly recommend it. It's a wonderful community, and you guys have been super duper positive over there of anything helping to promote the podcast. I've seen a lot of outreach from you guys, so continue doing that. Thank you guys so much, and keep on listening.
Yes, thank you so much. And Pat, we will see you next week, buddy. Bill, where are you on social media?
You guys can find me world building in the Bill Sheehy canon on Twitter at Star Wars Bill. You guys can please check me out on my friend Perry's podcast, My Bourbon Podcast. We talk about Star Wars and we drink bourbon. I mean, it's not that different from this podcast. You guys can find me there. Thank you so much for listening. May the Force be with you.
All right, thanks, Bill. I'm John Hoey. You could find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey and writing articles and editorials at StarWarsNewsNet.com. And in 2 days, I will be in New York City for the Hasbro Toy Fair, and I'll get myself a New York slice of pizza at Sbarro's, and I'll be writing up a report with all the Solo merch and all the other cool Star Wars stuff that they present. And thank you for listening and supporting the show. Please keep spreading the word to your friends and family, town clerk, local barista, cats, anyone you know that likes Star Wars. Just tell them, because we have a feeling they'll like the show, and that's the best way for us to spread the word of our podcast, so we appreciate that. We are coming right back at you in just 4 days on Monday morning, so make sure you are subscribed so you are alerted with our next transmission right here on the Resistance Broadcast.